Yes, it is the Blue Room. Premier League season has started, and Everton are not quite up and running in terms of points, but very much up and running in terms of transfers. Loads to speak about this week. Joining me to go through it all are Paul McPartland. Paul, how are you, mate?
Yeah, fine. Massive experience of some reverse sensation of vague optimism about some of our business in the transfer market. So let's hope we continue in that same vein.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Also joining us, those of you on YouTube will, in for a treat with his magnificent hair part today. Is Adam Sutton. Adam, how are you doing, mate? Obviously, a lot of time spent in front of the mirror perfecting that before you came on.
That's it. I had to double check whether it was on video or not. And being the Blue Room's Dole David Beckham, you've got to keep up appearances, haven't you? So no flat cap today, just a bit of hairspray and a brush over.
Absolutely. And Lyndon Lloyd from Top Your Web joins us as well, mate. Do you take any extra measure before you come on the Blue Room in terms of getting yourself ready, getting yourself fired up or anything like that, or just sort of, I suppose, just rolling out of bed for you at this time, aren't you?
Almost, yeah. No hair to part for me, unfortunately. So, but I usually am not prepared enough, and I just quickly scramble and get a chair that wouldn't squeak on air. So, but other than that, I'm sorted, I'm ready, and ready to go.
Good stuff. Loads to talk about, as we said. Everton played a football match on Saturday, lost 1-0, but some positives to take from it. I'm sure all the lads would agree. We'll speak briefly about that before we go into transfers. And Everton have made 2. They might have made 3 by the time you listen to this. Connor Cody and Amadou Onana are through the door. Idrissa Gueye looks like he's not going to be far behind them as well. But just quickly, lads, I wanted to speak about the stadium. It's been, on Tuesday, it was the 1-year anniversary since Everton started work on the site down at Bramley-Moore. And, I know Paul and Adam, you guys have been in town quite frequently and back. And I did the same myself on Sunday. I was coming back from the Wirral and, got that train that comes out of Moorfields and up. And you can sort of see all over the dock, just on the north of the city. And it did just sort of catch my eye as I was going there. And, you could see, what we've all spoken about was going to happen before this started getting built. This structure sort of emerging from the river. And I know we don't speak about stadiums much on these podcasts because, the club do feed a lot of info. A lot of it doesn't really, stimulate people in that sense. It's not really that interesting a lot of the times. But I don't know about you, Paul, but seeing the structure take place certainly over the past week or so, it has got me very excited about Bramley-Moore and sort of giving me that knot in my stomach a little bit about leaving Goodison Park as well. It's very bittersweet to see that thing start to take shape on the front.
Yeah, it's bittersweet, as you say, Matt. I mean, like you, I drove past the stadium about 2 weeks ago in the evening, and I did a double, as Adam mentioned, I did a double take. You can see one of the main stands is almost in place. The structures inside, you can imagine what it's going to look like when it's finished. And even just little things like having the club crest on the walls outside as you drive past now just makes it feel so much real. So, yeah, I mean, I think I have to commend the club on the progress that they have made, because I think being Evertonians, we all had our doubts that this project would ever come to fruition, and I still think there's always a little doubt there that it might still not come to fruition. But at the moment, all the developments are certainly going along the right track. There was a really good article from Paul Joyce on the Times last Friday about the foundations of the stage and the development work there. So it's everything's going in the right direction at the moment, and it will be hard leaving Goodison Park. Absolutely no question about that. It's going to be a wrench. No matter what age you are, it's going to be a wrench. And but if you don't move with the times, you stand still, things bypass you. And I think for the modern matchday fan, particularly for the younger generation supporters, unfortunately, Goodison Park can't really meet the demands. I don't think any more of a modern Premier League club. So we will have to move, but it will be sad. But I'm quite looking forward to the new stadium.
Yeah, Adam, I mean, I remember when I first saw the images of it for the first time when they did that presentation down at the Titanic and got that, oh my God, this is going to be boss sort of feeling. And I've not really had that since I saw it again on Sunday night. I mean, you were saying yourself, you've got that train journey a couple of times as well. How do you feel about the way in which it's taken shape down there?
It's crazy, isn't it? How it feels it's come on so quickly in probably the last 2 or 3 weeks, really, isn't it? And I think obviously once a certain type of structure or materials put in place, then you actually start to visualize this is happening here, and this could be a place that Everton fans will watch Everton from in the near future. So yeah, I'm the same as you, Matt. Really, I find it quite hard to get excited by buildings, but this building in particular seems to be one that I'm very much excited to see build and obviously become our home. But just as excited as the stadium itself, it's little thing. I'm a bit of I love like the nightlife and social side of things and the match going experience, which I've mentioned many times on the Blue Room, and looking at little bars and restaurants and pubs and just ideas of where you're going to go with the boys or with your dad or whoever you go the game with beforehand. That's really exciting as well, because that side of Liverpool is something that is going under a massive regeneration, really, and Bramley-Moore is going to be the place that is obviously, hopefully, the nucleus of it. And yeah, little things down that Dock Road or the bridge in the gap between town and the stadium is going to be so exciting. So yeah, it's creeping up on me, the excitement, but I still don't 100% believe that it will happen until I'm sat there booing someone just conceding after 2 minutes in the first derby of Bramley-Moore.
Yeah, I mean, Lyndon, are you getting excited by the buildings that you're seeing down on the front?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I just have to echo that the speed that it is going up is quite surprising. I mean, obviously it's going to plan and to schedule. I think I saw someone post that they might actually be ahead of schedule, which is great, because it's funny. When I started first developing a website for Everton was just about a year before the Peter Johnson, the Johnson Dome was proposed. And so, we've got a couple of decades or more, 25 years of this sort of stadium problem that's been hanging around and that we never thought would actually be solved. And when it did look like it was going to be solved, it would look like we were going to get shunted out to Kirby. So it's it is hard to feel that it's real. I tried to sort of spend a few weeks staying away from the pictures and the drone videos, and then I'll come back to them and kind of really surprised at the speed and the progress that they've made. And then, I mean, to Adam's point about that whole regeneration of that area, there's going to be stuff that's eventually will be there that we can't even think of right now. I mean, it reminds me of the San Francisco Giants building a completely brand new stadium down by the water in San Francisco. I mean, when I first came to the city, I was parking my car in this enormous car park that is now where the stuff has just grown up around the stadium. Now, obviously, Liverpool doesn't have, the tech money that San Francisco benefited from, but I mean, that entire area has been completely transformed with, apartment blocks and restaurants and supermarkets. And from that perspective, as you say, just filling in that area between town and the dock, 10, 20 years time after the stadium is built, if the stadium's the catalyst for all of that, it could be unrecognizable. So it's really exciting. And I'm just sort of, dreaming of the day that, I get to come over and be there.
Yeah.
On a cruise ship, Lyndon.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is going to be amazing. Just quickly, Lyndon, for those who might not know, can you tell listeners what the Johnson Dome was?
Well, the Johnson Dome, it was Peter Johnson. He wanted to initially move us to, wasn't it? He wanted to move us to Aintree, out to the golf course. And then obviously when that didn't come to fruition, it ended up, he wanted to move us to Crompton Colliery. And, at the time, it's funny how you kind of have that. And we had the same thing with Mashiri to an extent, is someone comes in with money and everyone kind of goes, oh, that's great. We'll just throw money and it must be a great idea. And I think, the ballot that he had, about 90% of Evertonians said, yeah, let's move, and build a new stadium. Obviously it all came to nothing because, it turned out that he wanted to fleece Evertonians with his DJ Spuddles crisps or whatever it was once he got them in there. But yeah, that was the ill-fated and never to happen Johnson Dome.
Oh, what could have been, eh? But yeah, it looks amazing. Anyone who's close to that area, I recommend getting down there and having a look at it, or looking right when you're on the train into town, or left when you're on your way out. It looks absolutely fantastic. But we are at Goodison Park for now still, lads, and we are started our season at Goodison Park on Saturday. A great atmosphere. under the Goodison Park twilight. Unfortunately, couldn't get a result against Chelsea, 1-0 in the end. Paul, what did you make of it? To be honest, it sort of panned out exactly how I expected it, with not much quality in attack for either side. I mean, they've got quality, but not much of a cutting edge. Both teams playing pretty defensively, both teams being quite cautious, and it wasn't a great game. But in the end, Chelsea just had that edge. I mean, I did laugh when he brought Conor Gallagher on for the last 2 minutes just to kick people and run down the clock. And I think that sort of sums up the difference in the two sides, doesn't it, really, at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you looked at the respective benches, and they had far more options than what we had to bring onto the pitch. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was quite an underwhelming game. I think beforehand, not many Blues would have fancied to win that game, given our total lack of striking options. So I was kind of looking to see how we competed, what we were like organisation-wise. And I thought there were lots of pluses from the game. I thought James Kwiatkowski was tremendous at the back again, but he led by example. Marshall, people passed the ball exceptionally well, tackled well, anticipated danger. And that was a huge positive for me. I thought that there were several good performances across the team on Saturday as well. I thought Roby had another good game in midfield also. And I thought Patterson and Mikolenko both showing real signs of developing into good wing backs. So there were some positives there, definitely. Yeah, I mean, lack of striking options. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're a Premier League club and we start the season without a single striker, either in the starting 11 or on the bench. And I think... I really don't know how good a player Ellis Sims is going to turn out to be, but you're kind of thinking, could we not have delayed his loan to the final day of the transfer deadline window and had him on the bench as an option for Saturday? Because he certainly could not have been any worse than the options we had on the bench for that game. So I was quite, a bit baffled by that. But yeah, I mean, there were some positives, and I think, okay, there's rumours at the moment, isn't it, about Charlton's possibly joining us. I suppose he's some type of upgrade on Salomon Rondon, because at the moment it looks like Rondon's our main chance. But I think going back to Saturday, yeah, a draw would be an ideal result. And I think if you wanted to summarise what it's like watching Everton sometimes, the whole Ben Godfrey incident, from the back pass to the corner that wasn't given for being out to the actual injury that breaks his leg, just encapsulates what Everton can do to you in the space of about 30 seconds. And you just knew, didn't you, that you always kind of say, Yerry Mina, when there's nobody around him, he gets injured. He's only a defender and know who gets injured, not making challenges. It's just incredible. So it was considering we lost half our back four, we actually did well to get a draw, to keep us at 1-0. And you know, I left the stadium cautiously optimistic by what I'd seen. I don't know if you guys thought the same.
Adam, you were nodding there. Is that pretty much what you felt as well?
In a way, obviously you're never satisfied with coming away from a game with nothing, are you really? But I think most Evertonians will agree that there does feel like some form of continuity, whether that's the starting 11 minus a number 9, really, which is usually the main focus of your starting 11. But I think in terms of the way that Lampard, he almost seems to have found what he's going to move forward with here, with the 5-back, 3-back, however you want to play it. And then rumours around transfers, people coming in. It seems like the focuses are very much in the right places, really. So the midfield options, in my opinion, Everton haven't had a good midfield in probably a decade, really, in terms of just consistent growth and a pairing or a trio in there. And they've got that now, or seem to have got that if Idrissa Gueye comes in, and then they're moving on to the next priority, really, and pairing that with the performance on Saturday, you could say, or the way that Everton looked to play on Saturday. I think it was just maybe missing a little bit of quality. And Chelsea-wise, I think they're going to really struggle actually this year. They seem to be in a bit of a transitional stage where you look at that side they've got, and granted they've brought in a number of maybe big names, the likes of Koulibaly and a few others, but then this new owner seems to be playing a bit of football manager with them, something we're quite used to now, actually. And I just don't know whether they're in... Chelsea have always been very reactionary in a way that they'll sack a manager or they'll sign a player, but I don't know what their direction is at the moment. And it seems to be something that Everton, if we did have someone who could put the ball in the back of the net, probably would have taken a little bit more of an advantage on. And that's maybe the main annoyance actually from Saturday evening, is that Everton, with, I don't know, 1 or 2 players who were injured or not available, probably could have taken 3 points really. So, as you say, bittersweet really, that it feels like a bit of direction, a bit of continuity with this side and with the club now. But again, we're going into the second game without a single point and a single goal. So has to change very quickly or people will start to murmur really. But yeah, slightly optimistic. You just need to start picking up points now and then things will very much start to come together.
Lyndon, how about you? Same sort of mindset?
Yeah, exactly the same kind of mindset. I was a little underwhelmed by Chelsea, to be honest. I don't know if it was because the fact that we had no one to really trouble them up front changed their approach. Maybe they had a little bit less urgency, but yeah, I thought they didn't look all that inspiring. As Adam said, if we'd had someone up front, we could have taken at least one of the chances, particularly if Dominic Calvert-Lewin had been there. There was a couple of in the first half, terrific balls into the box that you were just crying out. And the one that Anthony Gordon, headed really far wide, you just thought, well, if that was Dom, you'd put your money on it, on him at least testing the goalkeeper or scoring. And I think if we had got a goal in the game, we would have got something out of it, because, as I say, Chelsea really didn't trouble us all that much. And ultimately, the game turns on a controversial, penalty decision, or it's clumsy by Doucouré, but it's one of those decisions that, as I think I put on Toffee Web, that if it's at Stamford Bridge and the shoe's on the other foot, we're not getting that penalty, and it's just one of those decisions that infuriatingly we don't get. And then we just still do not have the luck with us. I mean, Godfrey's injury obviously was just ill fortune. He goes in really hard, but that's Godfrey's style. And just to come away with a broken leg, it's just within 10 minutes of the start of the season, it really is just so Everton. And then at the other end, I think we just needed a bit of luck. Damari Gray has a chance, and Thiago Silva diverts it wide. We obviously had that 2-on-1 break where Gray just puts it a foot behind Silva, then Gordon's in. So I was encouraged from that perspective. I think that we there wasn't panic, and there wasn't we didn't look like we felt inferior this time, and we thought that we played through the lines really confidently at times, much more effectively than we did last season. So there's germs of ideas there from Lampard that are starting to sort of filter through to the players, where they're having more confidence, passing the ball forward. I thought Doucouré was excellent, apart from obviously the penalty incident. Nathan Patterson, really encouraged by him. I would love to just see him now just take the bull by the horns and just get a run in the side for the entire season, because going forward he looks really good. Love his attacking instincts. Defensively, he looked a little suspect, particularly with Dwight McNeil. The pair of them struggle a bit against Sterling, but that will come. He's a young lad, and this is with no expectations really this season, apart from staying up. If he can spend a year really learning his trade at this level, I think he has the makings of a really, really top attacking fullback. And on the other side, as the point was made, Mikalenko's continuing in the vein that he finished last season. Vinagre looks a decent prospect as well, and it gives you options of maybe switching those two out. If we need Mikalenko to drop into central defense, then you've got another willing attacking player there. So yeah, on the whole, I was encouraged, and I think if we get Idrissa Gueye across the line, add that to the signings we've already made, get a striker in, and I think we can do actually better this season than I think we were all hoping or fearing, whichever it was, before the season started.
I think Chelsea fans will go away from that game thinking we've almost got away with one there, because we were nowhere near good enough to probably take the 3 points. And if you win in a game by 1 goal and scoring a penalty after the previous season, looking to get yourself towards that top 2, then I think it obviously speaks volumes about Chelsea, doesn't it? But I think it speaks volumes, as Lyndon said, about this clean slate we've almost got now with Everton and with Lampard. And he's almost been, I feel, forced into, whether it be a formation or whether it be picking certain players. I think Nathan Patterson is a prime example, actually. And I don't know whether it was ever going to come to fruition, but there was rumours around him going out on loan and Lampard not fancying him and maybe not being ready. But when our players ready, especially players like Nathan Patterson, who is, he needs a run of games, he needs to play football, and the likes of Mikalenko as well has come into the side at such a difficult time. He's shown that he's got that side of his game mentality wise to almost brush the adversity to the side and then carry on and try and learn his trade, really. And again, I think it's just quite a nice balance that we're building at the moment now. And you look at Connor Cody, look at James Tarkowski, and maybe signings that aren't necessarily fitting the young and hungry mold. However, balance is such a massive part of football, and you can have a solid defence which concede little to no goals every game, and then you've got your youngsters who are maybe a little bit raw, a little bit unpredictable, and you pair that with some players who are finding form, your Alex Iwobis and hopefully Anthony Gordon and Damari Gray, then you're going to score goals and you're going to hopefully keep clean sheets, and if you do that, usually win games. So hopefully in the coming weeks it starts to all come together. But yeah, I think there's hopefully a real direction now for the club, and we can leave last season behind, which is definitely what we need to be doing, and looking forwards now.
Yeah, I'm glad you all mentioned Patterson, because I thought he was really good as well. I think he started off quite nervously, and there's that one moment, it's right in front of where I sit in the Gladys Street, where Sterling squared him up, and all Sterling did was like do a little fake kick, and he just jumped up in the air and walked past him, and I was like, well, that's the nervousness I imagine of him playing his first Premier League game against a player like Sterling, because any other player doing that, he just stands his ground, maybe moves a little bit, but doesn't get walked past like he did. But I think he really grew it into the game after that, so encouraging signs from him. But moving on, Paul, as you've all said, really, Everton have been very busy since then. Monday brought in Connor Cody, Tuesday brought in Amadou Onana. We'll take them in order. Connor Cody link sort of came out of nowhere a little bit towards the end of last week. I don't think anyone really took them too seriously, and then obviously what's happened on Saturday is given Everton a bit of a kick up the backside in regards to getting a centre back in. They've got him in on loan. They've got him in with an option to buy instead of an obligation to buy. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a player I've always loved or thought he's, top class. But the more you hear about him, the more you hear him speak, the more you speak to people who've watched Wolves for a long time, the better a signing it seems. And in terms of the terms of it, in terms of the character of the player, in terms of the system we're going to play, I think it ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't it?
Yeah, Matt. I mean, personally, I was really pleased with the signing of Connor Cody. He's a defender I've admired for a number of seasons. Remember last year, but when Wolves beat us 1-0 in February, and he marshaled their back four, really well throughout the game. They didn't allow us any opportunities. Totally professional performance. And given our appalling track record with injuries for central defenders, I think he's missed 3 games in 5 seasons. One of them was through COVID, one was through suspension. So with that type of appearance record, you've got somebody with huge Premier League experience who's played at the top level and is acknowledged by most football pundits as being a class defender. He's an England international. Been reading some reports about as well that during the Euros, Steve Holland said he was England's best player, even though he didn't play, because in the dressing room, he led by example. He spoke to everybody like a captain by example all the time. And I think what I like about Lampard's recruitment policy at the moment is, in the past, we've gone for names without really doing the background checks on how these people fit into the dressing room, what they bring to the squad. You look like the All Blacks, for example. They have the no dickheads policy, don't they? Where they won't pick somebody who's going to unbalance the camaraderie amongst the players. And I think that's a really important fact, because I think in the past we've been guilty of buying individuals and trying to fit them into the team rather than bringing leaders into the squad, players who we know have got the right mindsets, who want to play for the club, which is an important difference as well, and are going to bring leadership qualities. Because you saw Tarkowski on Saturday, the way he spoke to people, the way he was arguing with the referee. He's leader on the pitch. The more people like that we have on the team, the best. So yeah, I'm hugely impressed with Cody. I think he will score a few goals and set pieces for us as well. And I think to get a player of that experience and that quality, who's an England international on the deal we've got him for, I think it is one of the best pieces of business we've done for a while.
Yeah, it is mad, Adam, isn't it? The Wolves have let him go in this capacity. And I know there's a lot of goodwill there between the player and the club, and they obviously want him to play regularly to go to keep in the frame for England. He's been in, I think, every England squad for about 3 years now. But it's a bit mad from their point of view, isn't it? Because if their back four experiment, which they're looking to go through, doesn't work, they've lost the key defender for the system that they played for the last 5 years really well.
Yeah, it seems like there's maybe more than meets the eye there, really. But at the same time, there's always, and I know he's not obviously a brand new manager, Bruno Lage, but I think there's always that one example that you try and make when you're coming into a team, and he's probably just adapted what he had last year, obviously taken the job and thought, well, I'm just going to have to work with what I've got and maybe try and stamp my authority come the start of the new season. And well, what's more of a stamp of authority than getting rid of your captain and possibly definitely the player that's played the most minutes over the last number of years. So yeah, it seems like a strange one there. One of my good friends who I lived with when I lived down in Birmingham was a big Wolves fan, and he's a little bit perplexed by it as well. And yeah, maybe just something that the manager's tried to do to say, well, this is my team now, this is my way of playing, and this is what I want to see for the future. So yeah, who else but to get rid of than your main man, really. But yeah, their loss is hopefully our gain. And as Paul said, there's a way of recruiting this balance that I alluded to before, and Conor Cody feels like a really good balance. And you need players who are there's always going to be little groups within a squad, and that's fine as long as people are gelling together as a whole on the pitch. You're going to have your good mates and you're going to have maybe your teammates. And Conor Cody feels like one who could float around those groups actually and become very well thought of across the board, not just with the team itself, but you look at the staff, Ashley Cole, who's maybe around, not far the same age really, and trying to get this very much club-like feel between Everton, which we've lacked a lot of in the past 2 years at least. Hopefully there's a plan in place here, and it feels quite nice to have a plan in place. And yeah, we don't know how it's going to transfer onto the pitch, but it seems like Kevin Thelwell and Frank Lampard have been given the reins, and keep it going, because it's nice to see a team being built, and instead of, as Paul said, a group of individuals which we've had for years gone by now.
And as both the lads have mentioned, Lyndon, a player who's very rarely injured, very rarely suspended, like James Tarkowski. And I think what this does do as well is it gives Everton the opportunity to build some cohesion, doesn't it? Because you can't really build cohesion when your best centre-back is out injured or gets injured every time he plays. You can't build cohesion when you've got players who may be a little bit up and down in the form. But I think in Tarkowski and Cody, you've got at least two parts of a back three there who should play, who should be fit, are good characters, and are going to deliver 7 out of 10 performances every week. And that must be good for the rest of the defence and the rest of the team.
100%. I mean, the Yerry Mina situation was, tragicomically ridiculous last season. It's verging on absolute farce now. After last Saturday,
it was staggering that on Saturday. It was just,
it's amazing.
As soon as he stopped it, I knew you could almost. I think everyone on the ground knew what was going to happen 5 seconds later.
Yeah. And he's going to try and convince, the physio that he can keep playing on, and then it emerges that he's going to be out for 3 months with a soft tissue injury. Like, well, Yerry, how are you going to play on? It's just, he's a bit of a nutter. But I mean, to your point, you can't build anything stable without a stable back four, or a back five, or whatever. You need that central defensive contingent to build a partnership, which some of the greatest Everton sides of the past and championship sides of other clubs have been. You need stability back there, and certainly in Tarkowski and Cody. I mean, let's not touch wood, let's not jinx anything. This being Everton, but they have, as you say, tremendous attendance, availability records, and it's two bona fide leaders in an area, or rather in a team that we as fans have been banging on for ages, saying there are no leaders in this team. There's no one in there to pull people into line, to get into the referee's face. And now we potentially have two right there in the back line, each of whom could take the team captain's armband, and run with it. So from that perspective, I think it's fantastic business for this season. We've got two really solid, potentially even more so, for centre backs for no outlay, for free. And yes, they're both 29, but centre backs, they tend to be a couple of years behind in terms of reaching their peak anyway than outfield players. So I think it's brilliant business. And Cody has the potential to as I think it was Paul said, to be a figure in the club for quite a while, for many years to come. He just, he's local, and it just has that feeling that yes, he was a Red, but it feels like he could really become a really important figure in the club, and we need that. We need more of that.
I know he's a Red, but someone's dug out a picture of him, Walter Smith, haven't they, in an Everton kit from all those years ago. As standard. But I think I've not really seen many people mention the whole Liverpool thing, Adam, and maybe I think that's probably because when he did his interview and what followed, he did seem genuinely made up, didn't he, to be here. And I think players in the past, when they do those, sometimes go through the motions and they know what to say, but there is a sincerity about what he said, I think, and the way in which he spoke. And of course, what also followed with his family and what they put on Instagram, his kids all in Everton kits, him saying about his kids playing at the academy. But he does seem genuinely buzzing for this move to happen. And I think that's earned him a lot of favour with people.
Yeah, I think he's got a free pass, really, hasn't he? Especially with the last fella who knew the city to become part of our club.
He did say those words in his interview, didn't he? And
he did, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can see the bed sheets now. But I think it just comes down to, you can tell straight away with a person whether they're being sincere or not. And Conor Cody comes across as that. It's almost like I'm coming home type of thing. And if you probably look in between the lines of that, whether he has lived at home and travelled down to Wolverhampton on a daily basis, it's not the nicest drive, you could say, and back and forth with a young family, with friends who are living up in the city, and almost feeling like, well, if you don't miss a game, you're never going to be missing a training session, are you? And it could be draining for him. And as he said, he's 29 years of age now, and he probably just wants to settle down, enjoy his time with his family and in the city, and then enjoy his football paired with that. And he might have been probably thinking he could drop down lower or maybe go a little bit further afield, but it feels to him and it feels to us like Everton's a really good match. And if you've got a happy player off the field, then hopefully that transfers to on it as well. So yeah, in terms of him being a cop-eye, I'll give him a pass on this one, as long as he plays well and does what he says he does in his interviews. But as you say, I think it feels like he will do, and it's a bit of a win-win really. If he performs, then he earns his move. And if he doesn't perform to how we've wanted him to, then we're not obliged to be spending stupid money as we have done over the years.
Yeah, seems to make a lot of sense, that one. And going, Paul, from the players we know well, who are very dependable, very consistent, Everton spent €40 million potentially on a 20-year-old midfielder from Ligue 1, Amadou Onana from Lille. I don't know if anyone's watched a lot of French football in the last year or so, but even if you did, you wouldn't have seen him play that much because he only made 11 starts for Lille last year. But that being said, every YouTube scouting video I've watched, everything I've heard Roberto Martinez say this morning, everything I heard Julian Ron say on our interview with him earlier this week, people have got a lot of good things to say about this guy, and I reckon he's going to be the business.
Yeah, well, I think we all hope you're correct in that assessment, Matt. I think, you look at, I think if we mentioned his name this time last year in the Blue Room, I don't think we would have got a reaction because I don't think he's a name familiar to most of us on the show here. But the more I read and hear about this guy, the more I'm quite impressed with his background. Now, I like you, watched the Martinez interview this morning as well, and a couple of things really stood out for me. And we referenced before, I think Adam and Lyndon referenced as well, but the importance of getting players who fit into the team ethic, the camaraderie amongst the team. And all I've read about Onana, and Martinez backed this up this morning, is that he's a leader, he's a captain, he leads by example. And that to me is really encouraging. He's captain of the Belgian under-21 teams. He's an outside chance for being in the World Cup squad. So he's got everything to prove at Everton when he comes here now, because he knows if he can get a regular place with good performances, he's going to be a shoe-in for Qatar. So I'm sure that'll be his ambition as well. And I know Roberto has a tendency to praise everyone and trying to outcut his onwards, but I think his assessment as national team coach was spot on. And I know the comparisons being made with Marouane Fellaini. I know there are lots of similarities there. They were both 20 when they signed for the club. They were both relatively unheard of, in the UK. And I just think, if you compare it to the Moise Kean signing, because I never thought Moise Kean was going to fit in from day one. He just didn't seem to have the right mindset, the right attitudes. Whereas I think this player has, and I think he's going to, like you, I'm excited to watch him play for Everton. I think if he plays in front of the back three or back four, I think he's going to provide another level of cover there for us, makes it difficult to beat. He's a box-to-box player, so he's going to link up with the attack as well. He's going to give us another attacking threat. So I'm not expecting him to start straight away, but I'm expecting him to be fed in gradually as we work our way through the season. And I think potentially it's a brilliant buy for us. And we talked before, I think Adam mentioned about buying experienced players, which you need to do, but you also need to buy young potential with also a potential selling value that doesn't quite work out for us. So I think it's got the possibility of being an excellent signing for the club. And one final point I would make was, when we appointed Lampard, I was always really hopeful that his name would attract players to the club who he wouldn't attract before. Rafa Benitez would not have attracted Onana to join Everton. Lampard, with his international stature and standing as an England international, he is going to attract players to the club who in the past would not have given us a second look. So I think that's really positive.
A few things I'm very much excited and really impressed with Amadou Onana. And first of all, I can't believe how well he speaks English. Like, it's scary.
It's amazing, isn't it?
20 years of age. Like, it's mad. He speaks better than half the English lads playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, he does.
And then it's like, he just comes across like he's got this unerring confidence, and he'll take things in his stride. And he's obviously got, glowing references from around France and obviously Belgium. And it seems like he's done his research himself as well, actually, speaking to Lukaku and doing his background checks on who's played for Everton and what it means to play for Everton. And then secondly, really, not just Onana himself, but the Idrissa Gana Gueye and Onana appointments, or bringing them in on those transfers. It almost feels like, well, here's the current. I think you mentioned it, didn't you, Matt, in your podcast with Julian, is that you've got the current now of this is what we need to put out this fire. And you've also got the future of here's Onana to come in. And I think they're even from the same city in Senegal as well, actually, which is
both born in Dakar. Yeah,
it's just hopefully Kevin Thelwell's meant this, and I'm pretty sure he will have meant this, but you have again that continuity of, here's the man that's playing at the top level in French football, Champions League. He's been there, done that. He's been at the club, and here's the lad who is looking to do so. And you've just got them two who will, of course, speak the same language and, of course, have similar experiences from before football. And it just feels like this Idrissa Gana Gueye is the perfect catalyst for Onana to grow into football and grow into that role on the pitch itself, really. So it just, feels really exciting. It's hard not to run with it as much as we want to, really. But again, it's one of those things where he signed on a decent fee, of course, which you're going to have to do if you're looking to get this top talent. But you're very rarely going to make a big loss on players like that, because they are so young, they're so well thought of. And listen, you can move them on and recoup a little bit of what you may have lost, but I don't think that's going to be the case with him. And he's going to hopefully be in our midfield for, I don't know, the next decade, really, if he plays his card right.
Yeah, I think Lyndon, Adam's spot on there. And when you're a bit cash strapped, I think, as Everton are, obviously they found a bit of money recently, haven't satisfied the profit and sustainability rules, but when you're not as flush as the other sides, you need to sort of pick and choose where you spend your money. These are the sorts of players I think that I'm happy to see Everton spending big on, because, Paul mentioned Moise Keane there, who came to Everton, absolutely flopped 100%. And Everton are in a position now where he went out on loan, did well, and they're probably going to make the money back, if not a bit more on him. It feels like this is the way to do it, isn't it? If you're going to do it at all.
It is the way, and I think a lot of us knew that even when the cash was the club was throwing cash at the likes of Gylfi Sigurdsson, who is 27 years old. This is the way that if you aren't able to build a team that wins silverware, this is how you progress. The Leicester have been doing it really well, as you buy players young and you sell them on for profit, and that is the model. I echo what Paul said about Moise Keane. I never got the sense that he was going to fit in. He had a sort of a, almost like a fancy den arrogance about him. Whereas Onana, I mean, he's mature, but he's not in a cocky way. He's self-assured and poised. Anyone who can segue from an on-camera interview into a full-on pop video, did you see that video where he goes into he does a full-on, like, it's hilarious. But I mean, he's sure of himself, but he just seems to have this this air of maturity about him that he's not going to let anything get to his head in the way that I think was the case with Moise Kean. And in terms of the Fellaini comparison, I think if you compare the two markets at the time, the fee, once you adjust for the massively inflated prices that are in the Premier League now, it's probably very similar. I think we paid 15 million for Fellaini. And the beauty of this one, obviously, is that our down payment is under 10 million. With the arrangement we struck with Lille, we'll pay it over the life of the contract, which is exactly how everything fits into our current our current finances and the need to amortization across, as I say, across the life of these 5-year deals. So it's you kind of get a sense from the people who actually watch this stuff on a regular basis, like you Mick Greenhalls, they who follow the the scouting, and you can get a sense of a player that way. So that when it's emerged that West Ham had sort of agreed a fee, my heart sank a little bit, even though I really don't know much about this fella. You just kind of get a sense about if other clubs are talking about him in this fashion, and someone like David Moyes is prepared to lash more than 30 million on a player, then there's probably something to it. So that when we came in with our bid, and we were seemingly prepared to push the boat out just a little bit further in terms of personal terms than Moyes and his employers were. I was made up. So I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. I'm actually really excited by this one, and put him straight in the team.
Would you play him straight away on Saturday?
If Idrissa Gueye doesn't get over the line in time to be registered, I would. Yeah. I mean, he's played Champions League football. I know he's only made 11 starts for Lille, but when you look at the alternatives that we have, now I know. I mean, Doucouré and Iwobi actually did very well together, and I was actually surprised how well they did, being two players who are. Iwobi's obviously an attacking midfielder, but I want him further forward. I want him influencing things further up the pitch, because he really, the transformation that he has undergone in the last few months under Lampard is astonishing to me. I mean, I think a lot of us had written Iwobi off, and now you're kind of looking at him as a kind of the playmaker linchpin, potentially in a successful side. So I would put him straight in if it were me, but I don't know. We'll see what Frank does.
Paul, Adam, are you having that straight in the side at the weekend?
I think I'd be happy with him being on the bench. I understand Lyndon's enthusiasm, and it's fantastic. And the fans.
It's a very polite way of saying I disagree.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't particularly. I just think it's a bit of a gamble at the moment. He's just getting to know the squad, he's getting to know the players, he's getting to know the system. I'd be more than happy to have him on the bench to come on and make an impact. I think you made a good point there, Lyndon, as well, that I thought Iwobi and Doucouré played quite well on Saturday, but I think Onana will bring a bit more than either those two bring to the game as well. So if you put me on the spot, if he played on Saturday, I'd be thrilled to see him play. My preferred choice would be to put on the bench and maybe you give him around 10-15 minutes towards the end of the game to get him integration into the team. But if he plays on Saturday, I'm more than happy with that.
But realistically, I think he probably will be on the bench. It's unusual for a new signing. I mean, Dwight McNeil was a bit of an exception given the situation that we had. But it's usual that a new signing will start on the bench, and because he's only been with the team a few days. But as I say, I agree with you. I wouldn't be upset to see him in the team.
I think as well, I have this old-fashioned viewpoint that I'd like to see players make their first appearance for Everton in front of the home fans rather than the away fans.
That'd be too nice too. Yeah. Forest at home.
Yes.
Adam, what about you, mate?
I don't know. Why not? I think it's, as I said, the way he's come across from the initial interviews, and just his stature and a bit of an aura about him, isn't there really? The way he walked into the Finch Farm gym the other day, and he arrived at training this morning, and you can just tell that the fella's got confidence. So why not give him a chance to show us what he can do? And listen, it's going to be a tough test on Saturday afternoon, and Villa are, in my opinion, there for the taking. And why wouldn't you want to get one of your biggest signings of the summer playing straight away? That is one side of the coin. The other side is, listen, I think Iwobi and Doucouré did well against Chelsea. I think Villa are going to be a different test, but I definitely have him as an option. And if anything, having him in that conversation is only a positive, actually, because the likes of Abdoulaye Doucouré, who, in my opinion, had a really poor season last season, and can definitely improve on a number of aspects. We'll be looking over his shoulder now thinking, I'm not guaranteed a place in this 11. I've probably gone from maybe the top choice central midfielder at Everton to looking at 2 or 3 now, actually. If you bring Idrissa Gueye into that, then you're looking around at Alex Iwobi, who, as the lads have said, is pretty undroppable at the moment. Onana, who's your big young prospect, and Idrissa Gueye, who we know what he's all about. So it can only be a positive for the side. And you look at the defence as well. I know that obviously we've lost Godfrey and Mina as well, but you look at Mason Holgate's performances last season, and then the width as well with Dwight McNeil. It's turning into a side that is not just going to be performing because it's got quality in it, but it's going to start performing now because it needs to. Otherwise, your place in that starting 11 is definitely not guaranteed. So yeah, getting him in and around the squad, and if it's pushing others to do well, great. And if it's him playing, so be it. Great as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one glaring omission, though, which we very quickly talk about before we go. Everton didn't have a striker at the weekend. They've got Salomon Rondon back for Saturday. Loads of names linked in the last 24 hours. Armando Broja, Shea Adams, I think, as you mentioned, Paul, the lad from Coventry, Gyökeres, and someone from Rennes in the name of Jurassi, I think his name is. So 4 strikers linked in the last 24 hours. Lyndon, how do you think all this plays out? Is there one of those 4 that you feel is more likely than others, or you'd want to see come through the door more than others? I mean, Broja feels probably, the one that most people would want, but maybe is bottom of the list in terms of how likely it is.
Yeah, given that Chelsea just got rid of Timo Werner and have loaned Lukaku out and really are in the same boat as us and have no strikers, it's mad what's going on there. But I think we actually need to be looking at 2, and that's why if we can get Broja on loan, as you say, as unlikely as that might be, then there's scope to actually buy another one. The lad from Coventry, you can probably get that one over the line for a modest fee. I know next to nothing about him. This one, it can't go down to the deadline, but at least one of them might, because just because of the way that the market works. So it really is on Salomon's shoulders on Saturday, and then you'd hope that by the time Forest comes around, we've got someone else in. Because it's before the season started, I was wondering where the goals were going to come from, even with Calvert-Lewin in the side, because he hasn't been firing for the best part of a year. Now with him gone, there really is it's a massive concern. So how it shakes out, I'm not sure, but the urgency is there, and you'd hope they can get someone in over the line pretty quickly.
I don't know what you, mate, is the name of it from that 4 that's jumping out, or anyone else that not mentioned?
I think I'm in the vein of, if I've never heard of them, then they're definitely the answer. So the lad from Rennes looks like he's going to be one of the best strikers ever, doesn't he? So I'll get him in, and then you get Shea Adams in, who's maybe the yin to the yang of this unknown forward. But I think, joking aside, actually, it's probably quite nice to maybe go for that way of thinking. Actually, I think Shea Adams, as much as he might be, not as exciting as the other names, because we've never heard of a couple of them anyway. He's a proven Premier League forward. He's definitely a proven Premier League goal scorer, isn't he? I think he's done very well at Southampton, and I feel like he's the type of player that would just fit into a system and do well. And then on the other side of that is the young lad from, whether it be Coventry or Rennes. I think again is that build that Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell are going after, and probably comes down to finances really. And it seems like the French leagues are a little bit more lenient in terms of smaller upfront payments, and you see where you go with that. But I definitely believe we need 2. I'm just not sure on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't know whether I mentioned it on a podcast recently, but something doesn't feel right with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Hasn't felt right with him for a while, and I know that the Crystal Palace goal is hopefully a line in the sand for him, but again, another injury. He's going to be out for at least 6 weeks. I think last time he came back, he couldn't get up to full speed again, and he's so fine-tuned, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, that if he's not at 100%, then he's probably not anywhere near 50%, is he really? So you can't just be going into a full season with maybe Salomon Rondon and Shea Adams, or Salomon Rondon and a young lad who's definitely not proven. So if we can get both, maybe a little bit more of experience and a little bit more excitement, then go for that. But haven't really got a priority in terms of those 4 names. Broja is one that I think is stuck in many Evertonians' mind because he's a young, exciting player who's obviously Chelsea wouldn't have him for no reason at all. But again, if we're not going to get him on the right deal, then why wouldn't you look elsewhere and give it a bit of a gamble? But again, if you're going to go for a gamble, then you might need to bring someone else like Shea Adams in, who's definitely more experienced in scoring goals in our league in particular.
Paul, finally, what about you, mate? Does it depend on that? Is it just about getting the right deal for Everton, I suppose?
I think at the moment it's more a case of just getting any striker in, given all the total lack of options. But yeah, I totally agree with what Lyndon and Adams said there. And I think Che Adams, to me, from the ones who've been mentioned, looks a potentially decent acquisition. I mean, he's got Premier League experience. I think he's got 20 goals and 90 plus appearances for Southampton. So he's shown he scored Premier League level. I believe Leeds were interested in him as well. So you're always quite encouraged when another club is attracted to a player that you're after as well. So he would be okay, but he's 26, so he's still got a point to prove as well. And I kind of like these players who've made progress on the lower league to make it to the Premier League. So I think they've got more appreciation of what you have to do, what determination you have to show, what characteristics you bring to the team to progress your career. And for him, I'm not dissing Southampton here, but for him to move from Southampton to Everton, I think is a move upwards in terms of his career, because if he makes it at Everton, then he's really setting himself up, to establish himself as a successful Premier League striker. So I'd be more than happy Che Adams. I'll be on my own. If I had the money, I'll go for Alfredo Morelos every time. But I know, I know that's just me with that few points. And the other person I was wondering about, I mean, Chris Woods at Newcastle United not getting the game at the moment, on the bench most weeks. I don't know. You kind of look at who's available, who might come into the club. I like the idea of Broja. My only concern is, he's only going to come for 12 months without an option to buy it. And I think that changes your mindset slightly in terms of fitting into the group, because everyone else we brought in on loan, there's an option to buy, which makes them more determined to do well. So I think Charlton was more than happy with, but we just need somebody. But then this conversation, we could be really doing Rondon a disservice. You might be coming back super fit, slim, with an eye for goal, and maybe the answer all along was lying on our books.
Yeah, Patrick on Saturday. Conversation down. But Shea Adams, his middle name is also Everton, isn't it, as well? So
yeah. It's one
is it really?
Yeah, it's one of his 3 middle names.
Yeah, so maybe he's waiting the stars. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, we'll leave it there this week, lads. Cheers to Paul, Adam, and Lyndon. We'll, of course, be back over the weekend with our instant reaction to Villa. If you want a bit more from us, it's over on Blue Room Extra. Patreon.com/the Blue Room Extra if you want to hear a little bit more. Paul, do you want to make one more final point?
Here's one final point. I mentioned that before the show starts. A couple of friends were in the Freshfield this afternoon, and Stephen Gerrard was drinking in there, and they were definitely trying to earwig his conversation. And according to them, I'm not sure it's 100% reliable, he left the pub saying to his friends, "I'd be happy with the points on Saturday." So let's see.
There you go. He's drinking at the Fort Southampton deal with a Salomon Rondon on Saturday. Yeah, already in his head. But yeah, we will leave it there. Cheers to the lads. Cheers for listening. Up the Toffees. It's been an exciting week. Let's hope it ends on Saturday with 3 points for the Blues.